The podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
Hi, we're here. We're back, and we are talking about Stephen King's Finders Keepers. Not a great title for a great book. Just saying, I would think.
Let's unpack that as we go.
Yeah.
Right. But here we are. This book was published in 2015. It was 525 pages long, audiobook, about 13-ish hours, shorter because we all listen to it at much faster speeds. The dedication of this book says, thinking of John D. MacDonald, but shorter than the last one. With that, I am here with the people that I'm usually here with smiles on and our game faces ready. Hi, Luke. Hi, Ben.
Hey,
Hi, Melissa.
how's everyone doing? I feel like we're a little late on this episode. I think we can be honest on that one, but we haven't missed it being the September book club.
Correct.
We're good. We haven't
In our
missed one yet.
defense, here we go. Are you ready for this? In our defense, the Cardinals haven't lost since we were supposed to record this. So technically, we're still good. That's how I feel about it. Big number 16. Woohoo.
I don't have any Cardinal stuff sitting here. That's all
And-
upstairs.
I don't know, but I
And
would like
just a-
some props for like being the person who brings that up first,
That
because
was
that's
nice.
not really me
That's
thing.
good.
But I
That's
tried.
Complete side note, not a jinx, but Melissa, me, and you attended a Cardinals game for the very last game of the year, 1 year,
Mhm.
and they went on to win the World Series that year. I'm attending the last game of the year this year against the Cubs. So hoping for
Interesting, because I have a ticket to tomorrow night's game. Just the one.
It's the one.
Just one. I might go all by myself, but
That's
I have
amazing.
a ticket for tomorrow's game.
But now we have
All right.
formally dated
So-
this episode as to
Yes.
when this is occurring.
It is still regular season play. It is at the end.
I remember when
Okay,
we were
here we
going
go.
through drinks and those things, we tried so hard to like not specifically date when we were recording those episodes, especially with Harry Potter stuff early on too. Sorry for
Oh,
to
yeah,
digress.
Harry
That was
Potter.
the toughest. That was the toughest.
That was the toughest.
We did pretty well with it. I'm the only one that screwed up with it.
Yeah, that's okay. This
The
one,
Aretha
this
Franklin.
one's very much a monthly book club. Like I feel like
Yeah.
it's dated. Okay, so Finders Keepers, back cover synopsis. This is probably one of my favorite parts of every episode where we go through and decide just how off the back cover writer is. Here we go. Wake up, genius. So commands deranged fan Morris Bellamy to iconic author John Rothstein, who once created the famous character Jimmy Gold and hasn't released anything since. Morris is livid, not just because his favorite writer has stopped publishing, but because Jimmy Gold ended up as a sellout. Morris kills his idol. Right there in the back cover. What the hell? Okay, Morris kills his idol and empties his safe of cash, but the real haul is his collection of notebooks containing John Rothstein's unpublished work, including at least one more Jimmy Gold novel. Morris hides everything away before being locked up for another horrific crime. But upon Morris's release 35 years later, he's about to discover that teenager Pete Saubers has already found the stolen treasure. And no one but former police detective Bill Hodges, along with his trusty associates, Holly Gibney and Jerome Robinson, stand in the way of vengeance. Not since Misery has Stephen King played with the notion of a reader and murderous obsession in this #1 acclaimed bestseller filled with, quote, nail-biting suspense that's the hallmark of his best work, unquote, Publishers Weekly.
So if you're new here, welcome. We kindly ask you to subscribe and share. If you've been here before, welcome back. Now let's get into it. I just saw that, just figured knock that part out.
I'm super annoyed that this gave away like 3/4 of the plot.
Yeah.
Just me?
I mean, I'm not annoyed by it. It's what it's supposed to do. It doesn't give you every twist and turn. It gives you the bullet points. Could have been like we always bitch about
How vague
how vague they are, or how really they don't like anything nearly towards Doom McKee comes to mind as one that really stood out as a horrible back synopsis. But it's like, so yeah, it's that fine line of the movie trailer kind of thing. Do you want to give too much, give too little? The last book we did, and I can't remember what it was, that one had a good back synopsis. I think we agreed with. Yes, Revival.
Yes.
Yeah, that one had a good one.
Because it sucked you into the story without giving away plot points.
This one doesn't bother me. I think because there's a lot that's not there. Let's go and be like the real interesting stuff is not there, at least in my opinion. The actual story.
Yes.
This just gives you here's the lattice work that we're going to be playing in. It gives you some specifics to get you enticed. It's like a movie trailer where you've already read the book almost, is what it sounds. Because I did read this before right now. This is the first time I've heard the back cover. So
me
like
too.
to me, it's
I don't bother anymore.
it's hard. It's hard not to look at that and be like, well, we know all the details and specifics at this point after reading it multiple times. But like, would someone not having read it before get as much as we're pulling out of that? Probably. But at the same time, I think it's still just there to sell the book. I think it just gives, here's the lattice work, the framework to play within. Maybe I'm defending them too much, but there have been other ones that I think were much worse than this. I'll put it that way.
I am just saying, I feel like I need to know how these people get that job. Because King is not writing his own back cover synopsis.
Oh, no.
First of all, because he couldn't contain it to just a back cover.
Oh, he can get concise when he needs to. Gurm would have more problems with that, I think.
It would take Gurm 4 years to write the back cover.
It's what he's been working on. It's just been that.
All right, so we're jumping in. Finders Keepers. I'm going to start with mine, just because I don't have a lot of like big thoughts, and you guys have big thoughts. I'll let you go. So I'm just going to start with my first one and then roll with it. I really like the changing perspectives, both from character to character and as the characters age. Mm-hmm. Like I like teenage Maury and then prison Maury and then parolee Maury, who are all kind of the same person. There's not a lot of growth from him, but 13-year-old Pete to 17-year-old Pete, there's a lot of growth. And we even see growth from like Holly and Jerome compared to when we saw them during Mr. Mercedes and the 5 years, and Bill, who's shed half a person in weight, right? Like growth from him and growth from Pete's parents, who started off as down on their luck, hard times, I got to go find a job, to getting smashed by Brady Hartsfield, to almost the Arky Barkies and the fighting, and like coming back from the brink of marital disaster, financial disaster, family disaster, and like there was just lots of character, not arcs necessarily, but just personal growth, except for Maury. And I think that did a really good job of showing how stunted he was, because everybody else like learned from what was going on around them, as opposed to just shredding down and blaming.
Ben, do you want to take that one?
I mean, sure. I absolutely agree with you. It's a nice progression in life, and he hits the notes and the tones really well for all the age ranges. There's not one kid that's too smart. I'll get that out of the way. I'm no bitch on that one. No too smart.
Damn it! Now I have to change one of my questions. Not even joking. That was gonna be no. I think that's awesome, because that was something I was like, personal question for Benji. Were Pete and Tina written age appropriately? So done.
I think so.
Check.
Yeah, I really do. I think all the kids, and even Barb, right? That's Barbara.
Robinson.
Yeah, I think she was written very well, and it's kind of one of those of that's sound progression, the internal monologues that you get, and everything. I can't agree more with you on it. I don't know. Yeah, I'm out.
No.
Hold on, wait. Benji can't agree with me more, which means Luke's going to have to do like a devil's advocate thing on it, right? He's going to have a spin.
All right,
Hold on,
let's tear this
settle
apart.
in, everybody. Can we take a drink?
No, I agree. I agree with 98% of what you said, and the 2% is really just maybe splitting hairs. And I still agree for the most part with it. I think all the characters were really well written, and there was growth from the different time periods with the different age appropriateness. I'm all for that. There were maybe times where Peter seemed a little too smart, but he seemed too smart in something that he was avidly passionate about in an honors class student. Like, it didn't, if we didn't have enough context knowing where he was coming from, it would have been like, what the hell are you? No, you don't. But he has a reason to be passionate about this, and I bought it because I've been passionate about those things even at 15, 16, right? Like, you become a content expert on the things that he's obsessing over it, right? That's what he's doing. And I bought that. I believed his character in those moments. Most of you had
I just want to throw out there, I also think we can't forget the fact that he has been through a traumatic life experience in his life. And when that happens when you're a kid, you tend to grow up faster than you need to in certain ways. And I am not saying that like he's got it terrible, but he lost his home. His dad lost his job. His dad was severely injured. His parents were on the brink of divorce. He was financially supporting them so I think his extra maturity in those certain areas, particularly with the idea of losing himself in this, really worked from a mental health standpoint as well. That if it was just a normal teenager who happened to like to read, I would not have bought it at all.
Right.
So I think I agree with you completely. I just think it's more than just, he has a passion. No, that was escapism.
It was escapism, and it became an obsession. But the maturity level, because he had to save his family. I couldn't agree with you more on that. We are all 100% agreement. Benji, you have something on that too?
No.
Because I had one more thing to respond to Melissa's overall note here, and it's Morris.
Good, because I wasn't quite done with my thinking. So yes, go,
Morris
please.
himself, you said that he's the only one that's stunted and doesn't grow at all. I agree that he doesn't get out of like a couple very specific emotional and educational growth spots. But in the 35 years he's in prison, he does learn a ton of, I don't want to say coping, but more productive skill sets to learn how to people actively, is what I'll say. He became much more successful in almost learning how to people, I'll say it, for his own use. I think you know what I'm kind of getting at there. And I just wanted to point out that yes, it's something he's actively going to use in his own nefarious ways, but he learns and helps a lot of other people along the way while they're in prison too, to some extent, right? He has a helping people thing because it serves his own purpose of not getting raped anymore. Let's go ahead and put that out there. He became a guy that everyone in prison could go to help them with legal stuff. It was very Shawshank Redemption-esque along that part. But even when he does get out, he's not the same guy that went in. And there are positive changes overall, except for this one really specific, incredibly deep obsession that is the whole reason he's just lost it. I mean, in my head, of just can't get over feeling betrayed by this author. Like, that's a little too much for me.
Kind of. He also never took responsibility for what he actually did that landed him in prison, or for the murder of Rothstein.
Well, he should.
It was always somebody
he's off the hook
else's
on
fault.
that. He's fine. I agree with him. He should have done that. That's cool.
To Luke's point, he never took personal responsibility for, like, he never put it in his head that was his own fault, but he did put outward responsibility because he learned the mentality of, I'm sorry I did this, writing that letter to his victim. And so he knew he learned what he was supposed to do, and ate his pride before when he was in the juvenile detention, and they're like, why are you, whose fault is it you're here? My mother's.
Right.
And so then come prison time, he's like, it's because this is what you want to hear. It's my fault. I'm the reason
to get the
why.
A on the test without understanding the material.
Yeah.
I just is such a juxtaposition. That word did not come off my tongue easily.
It was good.
Between Pete, who feels too much responsibility.
Empathy. Yeah.
Empathy and responsibility. Yep.
Not even the empathy piece. Yes, empathy, but really it's a responsibility. This is my fault. If Tina gets hurt, it's my fault. If my mom gets hurt, it's my fault because I made a bad choice because of some books, right? He didn't act. Versus like Maury, who's like, that wasn't my fault. That was Drew and Andy's fault for not da-da-da-da-da. It's not my fault. It was my mother's fault. Da-da-da-da-da. Like, it was his bad choices. Yes, he's learned how to work the system, but he has never found a way to internalize, like, when I do something, that can have a bad impact on other people. It's never about other people. And I think that's the biggest difference between him and pretty much everybody else in the book, except for maybe Brady, in that there's no sense of just your responsibility to and with others. And that's what I meant by no growth.
Yeah, no, and I knew that. And that's, I tried to agree with that to start with, and I just wanted to point out the superficial growth, I guess, is the best way I can put it at this point.
He faked it really well.
Yes.
Yeah, he learned how to fake it.
Yes.
Yeah. So to give a quick rundown, as it had mentioned in the synopsis, Maury there in 1978 went and killed Rothstein, stole notebooks and a crap ton of money, brought it back home, buried it because he was going to come back to it, ended up violently raping a woman and got sent off to prison. Fast forward to 2007 or 2009, and Pete finds it and decides, hey, I'm going to use this for my family who's on this super tough time. My only question, no one noticed the old money. They changed all the denominations in early 2000s to the larger print bills and everything like that.
Yes,
and nobody questioned in 2009, why are we getting $500 a month of 70s, 60s money, like old denominations that had been pulled from circulation or were getting pulled from circulation, that every time they mentioned money, like the parents were like, we didn't know where it came from. We just thought this, or the sisters like that. It's a simple, like, just thing in my head. Even when like Holly and Bill are talking to Tina, they're like, would the money look like? Well, look kind of old. Maybe we should look at robberies from long, and it's just like this one large
what
like,
is the
plot
purview
hole
that I should be searching 2 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years ago? Like, that'd have been a really great point to bring that in and be like, well, I mean, more than 5 years ago at this point, like everything beyond, like, I agree. There's still definitely tons of bills in circulation now. I mean, let's be honest, you still see them all over the place, but I mean, they're not
Not
gonna.
nearly.
I mean, but this is
But
not
this
too
was
far after.
also
This is. I mean, we're
12
now
years ago
right. Yeah, it's.
when that started.
But that's what I
don't
meant to look
disagree.
that up when they
Yeah,
changed it. But I know it was
that's more
I'm
of
looking
a
it up now.
that's more of a Sherlock Holmes deduction than it is Bill Hodges deduction. Is I guess where I'm taking it.
Oh, here we go. Are you ready, Benj? The $100 note changed in 1996. The 50 changed in 1997. The 20 changed in 1998. And the 10 and the 5 changed in 2000. So, I mean, we're talking 10 plus years by the time this started. Now, at the same time, though, it was only 10 years. So they had all been used to
I still have old bills
the
here.
old.
Like
That's what I'm saying. And I think it would be more common to see it. I think if somebody showed up now and said, here's $500, and all of them were little heads, especially the 20s and the 50s. Like you see fives and ones a lot more often, but 20s and 50s, first of all, we
Yeah.
spend those too much and too fast now for them to
Right.
still be the little head.
right.
But yeah,
no, it's a good point, Benj. I
think,
was just trying to
yeah.
question.
Oh
it a
no,
little
I
bit,
know.
But
I,
no, it's a
it's
good.
just
It's a good
it's the one
catch.
thing that like trying
No,
to like.
Benji was right and Luke was
I was just poking the bear.
less right.
Oh yeah,
It's just-
no, I mean it was just one that, like I said, I saw that, and yeah, I guess because I just remember when when the change happened, and
Mhm.
I was like, oh, the new bill's cool. I kind of want to hold on to these old ones, and it just stuck to me that these are old bills, and if you're looking at money from 35 years ago, I would like if it happened every single time, you never once got a new bill.
To
Like
add
that-
on
that's-
to this, there's one more piece of this that I'm actually gonna agree with you even more now that I just thought of it, because these were all bank bills
Mhm.
in the envelopes. They should be pretty crisp and
Yeah.
finely pressed, not raggedy where they've been used for the last 30 years. That
Exactly.
to me is the bigger red flag. Is these are really old bills that still look ultra crispy, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like that I'm even more so that because they're still in the bank envelopes, all of them. He never used them. He just took them, put them in the safe, and that was it. And so yeah, that should catch people's attention. I take back everything that I said in dissent, and I am fully on this train bench. You are 100%
Fair.
correct, and I'm happy to be your brother.
Cheers.
Well, we're really having a very boring show when we all agree and are
Well,
happy. And yes, you're right. You're right too.
Wow. Kumbaya cheers.
All right.
All right.
Can I go back? I want to go back to Maury one more time.
He
And then
prefers
I'm kinda
Morris,
over
but
him.
Yeah.
Like I said, Maury, because I don't give a shit what he prefers. Anyway, I, I, I'm on a streak, right? That whole teaching and parenting and childrening thing that I do. His mother sucks, much like Brady Hartsfield's mother sucks. I'm not saying that they suck in the same way, but this is another really good example of how be a decent parent. I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but you got to be okay. And man, she was a pretentious bitch and kind of ruined her kid. Like the other end of it,
Mhm.
right? It wasn't that she necessarily neglected him or anything. And he also had some mental health thingies that he didn't take responsibility for things. But she was so caught up in her righteousness and you need to be just this way, everybody has to go to college, everybody has to be smart, everybody has to do just this thing in order to be successful, and you better follow this, that she ruined her son. Plus other things. But she didn't help.
Well, she certainly didn't help, and
No.
really drove the wedge in to solidify the fact that she wouldn't help, and he knew that because he's
Right.
not a dumb guy. He's not.
No.
He's intelligent. He's thinks he's a little over pretentious about it himself, which he gets from his mom,
Yes.
but he's not a dumb guy, and he wasn't a dumb kid. And he sees what she's doing, and he can't take it, and he internalizes it and rebels and blows
And-
up from there.
And if she had nurtured the fact that, like, yes, he's really smart, but maybe he's going to use it differently than she did, like, that's all he needed was just like a supportive voice.
Mm-hmm.
But then when she
Yeah.
sat down and like went through his whole beloved series,
Just tore it apart.
oh,
So I'm going to touch on just a second, but I, in a slight defense of the mother, it's also time frame. We're talking mid 70s. But not a lot of, in the last 30, 40 years, there's been a lot of advancement in encouraging children into going different ways,
I know.
doing different things. And so when she comes up through the 40s and 50s, let's say, she's, put on this track, she follows her track, it worked for her, that's the way you go. Maybe you rebel a bit, makes sense, but she even says, oh, I had my rebellious time. I wanted to be him when I was, 16 years old as well, but I grew out of it. And that's what she was hoping for Maury. And so was she ultra supportive in the common sense? No, but she actually did try to show an interest in his passion and what he cared about. She didn't agree with it, but she didn't really shit on it. She didn't, she didn't straight up say, this is a piece of garbage. She subtly hinted at it. She did the subtle.
But he knows his mom and how she is such like a literary critic person that he knows how she talks. So yes, in their vernacular, she was kind of crapping all over it. But go on.
Fair.
The rest of it, I agree with you.
But she in her sense did what she was taught to do in being a caring mother in her own right. Again, yeah, you're absolutely right. Nail on the head. Pretentious and just it's her way, and that's the way it's gonna be. I'm gonna cut you off. Not the right way to do it. But in the other sense, she didn't do anything wrong in the sense of she tried what she knew. And there's a lot worse cases that we've read from Stephen King of parents doing what they thought they knew and turning out way worse. She did it in kind of the way that most people would that don't have the mental background of, hey, maybe I should change up the game plan kind of thing. So I'll give her, like, I'm not completely disagreeing with you, but I don't think she's the worst.
Well, I'm gonna put us back on the right track and make sure that I disagree with both of you in the fact that you're both equally wrong, and that means there's no way I could be right, because that would mean it's somewhere in between. No, but my point being here, that was dumb, but it's a little bit of both, right? It's a little bit of both, obviously, and I'm just gonna put this out here. I don't think she's anywhere near the bottom of the worst parents list that we've seen in any of the Stephen King books. Was there an opportunity for her to be really great? Yeah. Yes. Did she flounder that a little bit because she maybe didn't know how to be a good mom because she had this really successful career and probably had to be kind of tough and cold in that time period to be a woman that's professionally successful? Maybe. I don't know. So I think it's maybe a combo of both, but I think we can all agree she is not the worst parent that we've seen in any of these Stephen King books. Like, so I just wanted to point
that's
that out.
not like a compliment, though.
No,
no, it's not.
I'm not saying she's. It's somewhere in between. I don't think she's a bad person. She just had an opportunity, then she blew. We only saw this one instance too. I mean, it's pretty much a one-off conversation that we see, so it's a little hard to judge off that one thing.
Okay. All right, then I'm done with my thoughts. I'm going to sit here quietly and drink my iced tea.
Well, I need your input on this one because it's only kind of a half note, but the runner definitely does not seem interesting. Like the whole series, like the love, it very much sounds like not the Great Gatsby, the other one, Catcher in the Rye.
Oh, yes.
It's very much a 3-part Catcher in the Rye is what I kind of get the feeling of, where you're going to have that hardcore fan base that it's an American classic and this and that, and then you have other people like, okay,
Jack Kerouac's On the Road. That's what. Yes, go on.
And so like, well, and that's kind of all I had. It's just like because I guess it just doesn't speak to me because I didn't read the book of the runner and because there's no actual book. But it's like I just don't get it for being in love with like that. I mean, I say that, and I'm a Harry Potter fan. So like, but I don't get being in love with that adolescent, rebellious character kind of thing. Yeah, the angsty, kind of thing. So it's just like, to me, I would probably get it from Mr. Witty in English, freshman year English, and be like, I'll read the Cliff Notes. Like I just don't care. Just like I did with the one I mentioned,
Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye,
which I never read, so I can't even speak to that. I did read Great Gatsby recently. Not good.
Cliff Notes. There was 2 pages of description of a meadow. I said nope.
Hopefully my girlfriend isn't listening to this because she'll cut my hands off if she knows that I don't like Great Gatsby. I'll just leave it there.
If it makes you feel better, I've never actually been able to make it past the first 3 pages of Great Gatsby, and I read a lot of shit. Little known fact that between being a theater major and finally ending up as an elementary ed major, at one point I was going to be a high school English teacher. That would have been the worst mistake I would have ever made in my whole life, ever, because I hate writing and I hate reading essays and I hate half the books you're supposed to teach. So I just like to read. So that means I read a lot of like this, I'm going to call it like the 1950s, like travel genre. And it's that, I'm going to say angsty, but not angsty, like just like lost. And I'm searching for myself. On the Road with Jack Kerouac is one that I remember having to ponderously make my way through. It's that same sort of feel. But I fucking hate Holden Caulfield and fucking Catcher in the Rye. It is the stupidest damn book. I mean, and then I even went and read more Salinger. I was like, I had people who were like, oh my God, Salinger's amazing. You should read more. So I did. They all were boring. I didn't like any of them. And I read like 5 of his books. And then he became a recluse and wrote absolutely nothing else that we know of. So it was like, I totally got the Rothstein.
So I was going to ask, with that being said,
it's like an amalgamation
Yes,
of a
like-
bunch of those kind of mid-century type writers
Yeah.
is what it, I mean,
Gotcha.
especially with like, if you take it just big history, the burgeoning U.S. society after the World War II, and
and like
and
the highway system is new,
it's like a whole mid-century thing
yeah,
that
Gotcha.
yeah.
I think if you grew up
Yeah.
in that time, maybe you feel differently about it. Us looking back, we have the internet. We don't need that shit. It's just not as good.
Like,
I read
I
plenty
mean,
of stuff.
I
I read plenty of stuff.
I
I read
read a
Don
lot of
Quixote. I
books.
had more fun with that than I had with some of these other books. And that's like the same idea
Frankenstein.
from 1700s.
Frankenstein. Love Frankenstein. Chaucer, Canterbury Tales. I
Yeah.
love some of those.
Oh, yeah.
Please,
good
dear
stuff.
God, don't
Dracula.
ever make
I-
me try and read. I will tell you, the one book I've never finished, and I have started for like 4 different classes with Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Never finished it. Don't care to.
I
Don't
just
care
read
to.
that not too long ago.
Shh.
It's not that
Don't
bad.
care to.
It's
Perfect.
quick.
Maybe you can
It's
write my
very
cliff
short.
notes.
It's very short.
Still could make it through. My point being, I do not like the 50s. The highways are calling in the world. Like the highways are available now, right? Because Highway 70 built in 1955. That's like the first America's highway. That's the feel of now the country is available and I'm not stuck in my parents' stuffy old World War, like their trap. I can go explore. It's like the pre-hippie hippie without being nearly as cool.
The Easy
Without
Rider.
being- without being as cool.
I mean,
It's not like
Yeah.
because it's more about my feeling inside as opposed to like
Yeah.
caring for each other. Anyway, but I
A
love
different
how
podcast.
the King, I know we went down a whole road. King like twisted it just enough because then he threw in that like the crazy like literary piece to it, right? There are those mega fans, and sometimes those authors do last for. It's why we read Catcher in the Rye in 12th or 10th grade or whatever, year after year. I should ask my daughter if she
And
had to
that
read it.
specifically comes
Voila.
up in this story, right? When
Mhm.
we're talking to Ricky the hippie, he specifically his intro to his
Mhm.
English lit class I thought was amazing because it's like, yeah, you're gonna read some of these things, you're gonna say this is stupid. You're gonna read this, and
And it
this
is.
is stupid. I can't disagree with your opinion. Hopefully, at some point, you'll reread it and get it. But there's a reason they do read these classics over and over again, and there's new classics being made all the time, right? So it's how do you condense down what angle do you have to take as a teacher, writing a syllabus, anything, curriculum, and all that. But I love that they do get into that, and I just wanted to throw this note in here real quick. There's a pretty consistent commentary throughout this book that kind of comes up in Misery as well, of like knocking on those readers that maybe take it a little too far. That's an avid thing through, and for me in this book, it just kind of felt like that was like slapped on top again to just a detective story this time, and I enjoyed a lot of it, but it didn't really need to be a part of this story, if that makes sense. There were almost too many times where it was like, yeah, we get it. We read Misery.
Yeah.
You know, you could just leave this one guy being upset. I don't know. There were almost like offhand remarks by certain characters where it's like, all right, Stephen King, Mr. King, we get it. Okay. Like,
Sure.
Sir King. So it was a little too on the nose a couple times where it was like, okay, all right, we know. It's all of the story.
Go do a podcast. You like it so much, do podcasts about it. Go on.
Oh my goodness. All right. What else you boys got?
I really love that this story starts off at basically a Y in the road for the story that we got last book, right? They almost kick off around the same exact point in history.
Except for maybe what I would consider the Gurm prologue of 1978. But yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Right. We end up getting to all of the major plot points for half of our characters spawn from one event from this book as it did from last book. And it's the city center job fair that Pete's dad goes to and gets hit. That kind of starts their whole family woes and everything. And we got a lot of information about Pete and his family and what they're struggling with. We got a lot of information about Morris and his family and his whole legal background, and by that I mean illegal background. And like, I thought that was all awesome that we didn't see the main character for 4 hours and 45 minutes in the audiobook. We didn't see Bill Hodges until 35% of the way through the book.
Page 191.
Yeah, it was awesome because it was just like we finally got to that moment. And I'm listening and go, oh yeah, he's supposed to be in this book, and I'm ready for
Me
it.
too.
Like, I'm so ready for it because I love his character so much that I didn't feel like it was lacking not being there. It like came in so late, but it just felt like the right time. I thought it was really, really well done. And once we got there, I was like, oh yeah, I've been wanting this. Like, I forgot how much I wanted this to be the book, and I was all in even more.
So, the one thing I find funny about Bill and the Finders Keepers crew, which, by the way, I know you said you didn't like the name. I thought it kind of fit perfectly with the entire story. First of all, it's the name of his company. Secondly, that's what the book is about. It is on the nose, and that's fine. I'm fine with it being on the nose, because Pete found the books, and so Finders Keepers. But what I was gonna say is he's kind of the Indiana Jones in the Raiders of the Lost Ark mentality in this book, because if Indiana Jones hadn't shown up, nothing would have changed. The entire story would have played out the exact same way it played out in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and this book is the exact same. Had Bill not shown up, apart from maybe the very end, but I have a feeling that Pete would have been able to get out of that basement, once the things got lit on fire, he would have made his way out. But yeah, Bill played no part in this entire story in a general sense of actually taking anything along, which I kind of like. Because to me, Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of the greatest films of all time. But if you look at it, Indiana Jones had nothing to do. In the end, he solved nothing. They would have figured it out. Same thing with Bill Hodges in this one. And it's kind of perfect. He's that good of a main character. He doesn't have to do anything, and he still wins.
I'm just trying to run through all of his scenes, which there weren't a ton. Let's be honest. Like, I'm just trying to think. Like,
so like the thing with the plane and the other guy that has no impact on our story. He talks to Tina. Maybe he helps calm her down a little bit. He goes to the movies with Holly. Has nothing to do with Pete. He stalks Pete outside of school. Talks to Pete for a little bit. Pete runs off.
He still
nothing
does what
happens.
He was going to do anyway.
Talks
Pete
to Ricky
still
the
goes
hippie.
home.
Yep.
Pete still goes to the whatever. Like, yeah, there is like.
Yep.
The most we get is the fact that Jerome's sister is Pete's sister's friend. That's like
That's
the closest we
the
get.
only thing. And even then, like you
It
said,
still
like
has
that
no
final,
bearing on the
final
story.
scene, he ends
Down
up
in the
being the
basement.
one knocking him off the gun or whatever. But at the same time, that could have still worked out pretty easily for Pete. I mean, it would have been maybe more drastic, but there were still plenty of outs there. I gotta give it. I think you're exactly right. I mean, for how much we love. I agree with you. Like for how much we love him.
Yep.
Even in this book, I loved him. We didn't really need him, but I'm
Yeah.
happy he was there. Didn't hurt the story,
I-
but didn't do
I
anything.
am too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did
I
so
am too,
much
and that's why.
with nothing.
And that
That's
goes
awesome.
into my last note or my third note on there. It's definitely more of a bridge for at least Bill and the Finders Keepers crew between 1 and 3.
Mhm.
It's just a story that King had in his mind, and he's like, I could probably twist this into a sequel, throw these guys in here as well,
And
then
give
I
some
can-
time lapse to show.
yeah, give
Hmm.
some time lapse and everything like that. And I don't know, like, I mean, I bet King started this off as in the mind of a sequel, but I could see him entirely just having the A story
and then
all
just
like planned
filtering
out,
it
and then
into a framework around the Finders Keepers crew. Yeah, I'm with
Here's
you.
the other thing. Stephen King doesn't really do things the way they're supposed to be done. Like when he's like, oh, I'm going to write a horror novel. It's not really a horror
It's
novel.
really a
Or I'm
sci-fi
gonna,
novel that people are just
Right.
like, oh, Stephen King writes creepy things. It's a horror. Let's
right.
not.
Or I'm going to write a pulp novel and it ends up being Joyland, which is not like he just, oh, I'm going to write a love story and it ends up being, I don't even know.
I know which one you're talking about, where they go and hide in the different world thing.
Lisi's story.
Yes.
Yes. Or
Lucy's story.
yes. Or
Or
even
I'm
like,
gonna write a novella, like an old school episode book, and you get the Green Mile. you
yeah.
know?
Like anyway, he doesn't ever just do the thing.
Well, yeah, that'd be boring.
Well, he also wouldn't be Stephen King. He'd be that other guy.
He'd be the other guy that we're not reading, having an entire podcast dedicated to him. You're right.
Yeah, 4 years in, we're fine. Okay.
So Luke, I think you got some more.
Oh, I got
Yep.
I got a couple more. I kind of already mentioned this, but Morris's story and time in prison really felt Shawshanky to me, right? We've all
Have you
seen-
read that
I-
short story?
I haven't yet. I mean, actually,
Okay.
I probably read it a long time ago when I was reading the books
Mhm.
that you left at our house, and I was just going through that and like Edgar Allan Poe's short stories and all of that. So maybe at one point, but not. I've definitely seen the movie hundreds of times,
Mhm.
probably, but it just felt like that, where like guy goes to prison, different circumstances here, but definitely deserves to be in prison this time for sure, no doubt about that. But he ends up like becoming like the cool guy that can help people out. Not
Mhm.
Red, but he's able to do things for people in a way that they're too uneducated to do for themselves, right? It's like a similar.
He has a niche.
He's got a niche, and
Yeah.
he's very useful to the other inmates, and
That's me.
it
I'm
ends
useful.
up helping him out a lot.
And if you think about it, like just to your point, Andy Dufresne, same thing. Starts off in prison, getting raped, getting assaulted,
Mhm.
everything like that. Then they find out, oh wait, he can do accounting.
Yeah,
He doesn't get touched again. So yeah, it's a straight
yeah, it's
mirror.
but it didn't take away from this being its own story. Still, is what I was like. There are definitely some
Correct.
major cookie cutter things going on to some extent, but
Yeah.
even knowing that, I wasn't upset by it because it just worked for who his character
Mhm.
was. Like for both of them, it naturally fit their characters well enough that I wasn't distracted by that. It was just, obviously you'll notice it if you've read both or seen both, but it didn't detract from the story. Any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I actually absolutely agree with you. It fit right. I mean, there's very much in this book that's cookie cutter cut out that you can draw parallels to. You have
Mhm.
Misery with the obsessed fan.
Mm-hmm.
You have Shawshank with the prison stuff. You have Lord of the Rings with My Precious, dying in the flame of
Yep.
that,
Mhm.
So there's very much stuff that, goes, but you're right. It's the amalgamation of the product and in the little twists and turns that made it different, made it its own. Everybody's going to copy everybody. And as long as Stephen King's copying himself, you can't really blame the guy.
I do feel like we've said that a lot the last few books. Have you guys felt that way? That we've been
Where we,
picking out,
yeah.
that is specifically something we've seen in X and X and X and X and X books. Does that detract from these stories to you at all? Like the newer ones, that it really feels like there's been a bunch of times where I'm going to take this one and A, B, and C and put them together with a totally different framework around it. But I mean, like you said, I mean, how many books has he written? 8,000? I mean, I know that's not
Give or
quite
take.
a little bit plus or minus, but
Rough estimate.
yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to copy somewhere. But I like what you said of if he's copying himself, that it's so obvious that, well, yeah, he owns that. Like that's his one of his things. That's not
I
plagiarism at
also
all.
think I also think the things he's copying, because we also get prison a bit with the Green Mile. We've got like, and this is not a fully formed thought. So if I stop mid sentence, I'm done. I feel like the things that he's copying from himself are truly human experiences, particularly when it comes to like the fact that he always has a writer in somewhere in his stories because that's his human experience, or there's usually some sort of bad parent because that's his experience, right? There's a broken home. There's usually something with some sort of addiction. This even had a little bit of the whole, ooh, I don't drink because when I drink, I black out and I make bad choices. Okay, thank you, Morris. Like those things reoccur because they're so a part of who he is that I don't even know if he does it consciously. I really don't think he does. I think a lot of it is just, I have this cool story and you write what you know. Luckily for us, he knows a lot of crazy shit too. Pennywise, Tommy Knockers, all those kinds of things. So I think, yes, he's pulling from the same well. So you might get wines that taste similar, but they're different years. And so they, which is more of a winery and a grape growing than a will thing. But it's the idea that it's all coming from the same farm. So it's going to have similarities, but the nuances are what make each year's brew or whatever great and
Exactly.
unique.
Vintage, yeah.
And now one other thing, keep in mind, he's not writing 100% for us or his longtime readers. He's writing to get that new reader because everybody you need new clientele to get your stuff. So
The old ones
to
are
somebody who's
dying.
who's yeah, exactly.
Took a break.
But so he's getting, so all this stuff, say you're a first time reader of any Stephen King, and this is the first book or second book because you read the first one, you're like, oh, that's cool. Let me go back and read some of his stuff. And you're like, oh, and then you start making those connections backwards, just like we're doing. We're going through, not many people read a monthly Stephen King book like us, and so we're have this fresh in mind to make these quick connections. But even Melissa, if you hadn't read a Stephen King book in 5 years or whatever, and you read this, you probably still would pick up like, oh yeah, I remember that from this, being a long time friend. So it's kind of that duality of, I'm writing this for my old fans who will appreciate finding that little nugget of, I've read this before, but that's a cool little way, and the new fans of, oh hey, that's neat, and then they go back, oh, I've read this before. And so I like that. It doesn't detract from me. Now, if it was just a straight up rip off of Morris got sent to prison, but then and after 32 years, Jamie Dean came in and was like, I actually raped that girl, but then it'd be a little okay, but the subtleties of it is what makes it fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I was just asking the question to see if you guys felt the same way I did too. It's like listening to a band you've listened to for 25 years, right? And you know their whole discography. You know their first album, their third album, their crazy fourth album, which was questionable, but they tested the limits and they went back. But if you hear their brand new album come out and they're using a similar key to what they had in all of their songs in the first album, you're not gonna be like, well, they're just ripping off their old stuff. Like, yeah, but you've been bitching that we've been doing stuff differently. Like, what are you talking about? We're doing it
Right.
all now. We're just doing it all, and we're doing what we want. And so just to have one more extended metaphor of another way of saying it, it's still all him. He's just doing
Yeah.
it his own way. And yeah, those are his experiences. So that's what he knows. You can only talk about what you know, right? So it doesn't bother me. I was just curious where you guys were with it. It's cool that we have so much knowledge now to actually have that conversation. Like Melissa, you could have had that conversation
Welcome.
2 years ago.
With
but
myself.
right, you're welcome for us
I tried.
putting ourselves through this just for your benefit.
Good. I can stop talking. Wait, I have to.
I think
Wasn't this podcast my idea?
I think my only other note that I have written here, for me, when Pete's mom gets shot in the head, by Morris. That was to me one of the most surprising things we've seen in any of these books. I don't know what it was, if it was just the way it got there, and it was just like, holy shit, he just shot her. Like, that was just it. Like, it just, for some reason, I knew he had it in him. Just surprised me. Did that scene sit with anybody else differently?
I missed it because on
Morris didn't.
On audiobook
Neither
time,
did Pete's mom.
I'm kind of in cruise control, getting to my next job and stuff. And it's like when I'm turning off the truck and it gets to like that point and I start back up and then they're going up and Tina's upstairs and I'm like, oh, okay. And then she's like, what was that? And like, they're kind of talking about it. Then they finally say, oh yeah, she was shot. But they don't ever say again that she was shot in the head. Like,
yeah, they do.
They
Whenever
don't
Pete goes and sees it and sees her skull,
Mhm.
he's like, that's skull. That's
Okay.
white. That's not.
Yeah,
oatmeal
right.
porn,
I think
Well, and
that's where-
she
that's
wakes
where
up
I-
later too, and she's like, "I have a headache. I don't
Uh-huh.
remember
Yeah.
anything."
Right. That's right. But that's where I was like, oh, okay. Oh, I missed that part.
Happens. It does happen.
Like,
Yeah, it
that's
does.
kind of that. So.
Do you want to know when you don't miss it? When you read it as a book.
True.
I actually read this one. Like
Did you?
that's like 2 in a row at this point that I've read
Man.
on
You read
paper. I did the
Revival as well?
audiobook after, but
Yeah.
Nice.
I
nice.
might go 3, 4. We'll
Man.
see.
Whew, getting out crazy. What do you think of Pete's mom getting shot, Melissa?
I was not surprised by it. Well, that's not true. It didn't shock me, I will say. You know me, I like a high body count,
Oh yeah, you were rooting for
right?
that the
If
whole
you're
time.
if you're gonna be a murderous son of a bitch, then you better fucking murder people. Otherwise, like you're just a pansy.
You got to be on brand. Come on, bro.
Go big or go home.
Yeah. That's a terrible thing for us to be. No, we don't condone people going out and murdering multiple people or like any.
But if you write about it,
Send us
Fake characters.
fake
By the way,
characters.
you want to
Okay.
watch a great crazy show about people dying? Squid Game on Netflix,
Yes.
a Korean show which has been dubbed. I have an episode and a half left and I'm obsessed. Okay, sorry. Anyway, like I said, if it's going to be about murder, I like a high body count. Not horror, murder, different. I will say though, typically in King, if the moms didn't start off dead or assholes, they're usually pretty safe. Like good moms survive in Stephen King. Danny Torrance's mom survived, and Barbara's mom survived the non-explosion from Mr. Mercedes.
Mhm.
And hold on, I can do a couple more. In Insomnia, the little kid's mom survived the plane crash into the crazy anti-abortion
Oh, yeah.
lady thing. And
Yeah.
like
none of the moms survived in crap. I had it. The Needful Things. They all dead.
true, but that was different. But Cujo, only the mom survived. So
Yeah.
like in general, like I could make a fairly reasonable statement that good moms who haven't died previously
Are protected to some
have a
extent.
higher survival rate.
Plot armor.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, technically,
Like
his
Jon
mom did
Snow.
survive. She still fits that bill, but yes, like the shooting of her was, and then that was it. He just shot her.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get anything for a while, and you're like, but did you die? And
Right.
we really didn't know. I liked that a lot. The
That's what
not knowing.
The take the shot screen away. That was the thing. It was just like,
Cut to commercial break.
I'm all for it. I was like, that was awesome. Not like a
Uh-huh.
shock. It was
And
more
now
like a
in Dorne,
yes. That was exactly no. It felt very television-esque. Like thing happened.
yeah,
We'll see later or not.
Well, so let's like Benji, I think you're absolutely right though. It's when you're reading a Germ book, right? I was telling the boys
Yeah.
before we jumped on, I think this is the first time I picked up Game of Thrones since I read it for the first time like 6 years ago. I'm finally doing it. Here I go. And this was always my problem is you'd read something about Arya and then she'd like come across some big scary blah 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 and the chapter would end, commercial break, and you'd cut to Sansa and then Tyrion and then somebody you didn't give a shit about, and then you're over there with Daenerys who I really
his
didn't give a
name's
shit about when I
Bran.
was listening
Okay,
to her.
you can call him by his name. His name's Bran. Okay.
Actually, I was
The one you
thinking of
don't care
Theon
about.
because I totally didn't care about Theon when I was listening when I was reading him the first time. Okay,
I was just
this
protecting
is
my
not
boy
the
Bran.
TV show. This is the actual like books, right? And then the next thing you know, you'd be back to Arya, and you would have come. Every time completely would forget that she was in the middle of like whatever crazy. You know how I feel about that? This is how I feel about that. Okay, so just I would have forgotten that she was in like the middle of this dire peril.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, wait, because it's never mentioned again, and you're like, what? I was just supposed to know. No, see, that was hard to track. That's what this felt like. Oh wait, hold on. There's somebody bleeding from the head. Right. I gotta what? Luckily, we only had to track that one story.
Yeah.
Maybe
It was a pretty classic mid-beat cliffhanger. Like it was really well done. I just feel like we haven't had many of those for some
No.
reason. And it for me, it was
No,
awesome.
usually he
It was done
spoils
really
it
well.
way in advance.
Right.
Like most of the books,
Yeah.
he would have said, you know, that's the last time I talked to my mom before her
Unfortunately-
brain injury.
Right.
He
you know,
did.
like-
He did it once.
There was
in this book.
at least one that I can
There
think
was
of.
one. It was early, and it was something about Dad carried Tina up, and that was the last time she saw him walking.
It was before he got hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but like I was like, oh, there's a Benji.
I thought
And
the
I
same
missed
thing. I was
that.
like, oh, Benji's gonna be bitching about this now too.
I missed that one because like
It's so funny.
it's so quick. It's within the same chapter. It's
Yeah,
not
it was-
that
It was
big of a-
early.
Yeah, it's early. It's within the same chat. Like, because they talk about that, then they go to City Center, and as soon as they get in, like they're talking about, I'm going in line to the job fair.
You're like, okay.
Like, if you read that, you know what's going on. Like, I already know what's coming. So it's like that didn't bother me because that made sense because he's already talked about going to the job fair.
Mhm.
So yeah, that one gets a pass. That one
Fair,
gets a
fair.
total
Not
pass on
like,
that.
hey, in 15 chapters, my brother is gonna lose his arms or something.
Well,
Yeah.
and let's be honest, that early in the book, we're not that invested. I mean, like we're kind of invested because we promised we'd read the book by the end of this, by our recording. But first chapter, I don't ever trust anybody I meet in those first couple chapters because,
Yeah.
I mean,
First
they could be
chapter
the-
I ever read. Georgie, come on, good grief.
right? Like, I love
Can't say
Georgie, and I
any
was
better
like,
than that. I was like, I am ready for
"Oh."
this kid. He is awesome, a go-getter, young chap. Like I'm for it. Nope.
I really think that was an excellent introduction to King World for you. By the way, you're still not quite over it. You might get a little traumatizing. It's okay.
Don't know if I'll ever get
Yeah.
over that one.
I don't think you
There's a
will.
worse
Okay.
one. There's a worse one in that
So-
book for me.
Yeah, it's the other.
Yep.
Crap, what is his
It's
name?
the same name as somebody else, and he has the little brother is Dorsey,
Mhm.
and it's the
Corcoran.
stepfather.
Corcoran.
Corcoran.
Is
Yeah.
it Michael Corcoran?
No,
Mike. Yes, it is Mike.
no, it's not because Mike is the librarian dude. It's
Right.
not Mike.
It's a doubled up name from the main group.
It
there.
is, but it's not Mike.
Eddie Corcoran.
Eddie.
That's right.
Eddie
Yeah,
Corcoran.
that one.
Yeah.
Whew, that one got me.
Yeah.
Whew.
So I don't remember what I was saying. It was obviously really important. But let's move on. There's one comment left. Something about mirrored characters, Benjamin.
So it's kind of obvious, but Morris and Pete are a great mirror of each other in the time frames and the timelines, in the sense of finding this writer, finding the passion, and taking it to the extremes on both their levels. You know, it's Morris takes it to the evil side, and Pete takes it to the good. He does everything he can to help his family. All he wants, yes, he got selfish after reading the books, after reading the notebooks and everything, and became obsessed with it. But he was willing to give them away to help his family. Sell them off to help his family. Morris had no intention of ever selling, but it's that mirrored, that flip back and forth. So they're doing the exact same thing in different ways. And I kind of dug that from that character aspect.
I completely agree with you. This has got to be the most boring episode. we've
Damn it.
had.
I was going to say the same thing. Hold on. Okay, you go ahead. Let me see if I can disagree. I'm going to
Oh man, I couldn't agree more, and I'm gonna use a very specific reference that you guys might appreciate. Hallows, not Horcruxes, right? It's going to the same idea, but you're choosing a way to use something for good, or at least a not evil way of doing things. And it's not a completely perfect comparison, but you see what I mean by the intention behind their obsession with a similar outcome idea, but they're coming from totally different stadiums, totally different worlds, right? On what their goals are. And
I
that's all I got to say
In
about
my-
that, honestly.
And mine to that, I get the mine. I already kind of mentioned it, but it's more the Frodo Gollum mentality with the ring. Frodo had the mentality of doing the right thing with the ring, using it in the right ways. More Bilbo, I guess, used it in the right ways. And then Gollum just wanted it for his own possession. Didn't want to use it necessarily for evil, but was willing to do
he did.
evil to get it.
He did. Well, before, well, that's a whole different. That's a
Whole
bigger
different thing.
conversation. I
Fair,
think.
but
But I don't want to
in the
open up
end,
that
like
door right now. But
yeah.
yeah.
So, but you know what I'm saying? Like
I do. I see where you're going with. Yeah. And there's.
I get a lot of that.
I'm trying to find a different book series to reference.
How about Percy
Nothing's
Jackson?
coming
What
out.
happened in Percy Jackson that can relate? I'm sure there's something. Or a series of unfortunate events. How about using the spy glasses? I mean, come on. There's got to be something here. VFD.
I'm going to go with a reference from earlier in this episode when I pointed out. I'm going to reference me.
myself.
That's right.
And I quote.
So I'm going to point out how at the beginning of the episode, I talked a lot about how Maury's character was so that not having a sense of others, it was all about him. And Pete was very driven by how his actions, like he was responsible for what was happening to others because of choices he made. That's just reflected in how they responded to what to do with the money and what to do with the books. For Morris, it was all about what he needed and what he wanted and what he thought he deserved. And everything Pete did, yes, he loved the stories, but every action he did was to take care of someone else. It was not ever for him. So it just ties back to that same thing we started with of what are their motivations? Those intrinsic things that keep them going. For Maury, it's incredibly selfish and self-centered. And for Pete, it's about taking care of others.
And it's very avidly that too, because how many times does he say, I could take this money, even after all of this $15,000 he's getting from the New Yorker to put it towards college. I'll figure that out. This is going to my sister. Like, come on. Like, it is inherently who he is, right? Inherently.
I don't think I would have done that for you guys. I love you.
I could use $15,000 right now to still pay for student loans. I'm just saying. If you guys, if you know anyone, I mean, I'm okay. I'm okay asking for it.
You do realize I went back to school for the 4th time this semester, right?
I know.
So no.
I'm not asking you. This is going
Okay,
out to
good.
the.
'Cause I could use some too. Okay.
We also have a
Um,
Patreon.
And apparently, we keep going to school. It's fine. Let's
That
move
may-
on to book club discussions.
Yes. So Melissa had a question. I put it in our little chat there.
Thank you. Good. Because I have 2 crappy questions because we've actually kind of talked about 2 of my 4. Here we go.
Okay.
Question number 1 that we've already talked about, I'm just going to let you know is, well, this is not the first time we've seen King do the book within a book shtick, aka Misery. Does it work here? And is what we see of Rothstein's work worth all this trouble? I think we touched on that by like relating it sort of to Salinger and all that kind of that particular genre. Yes, if you like it, but maybe not our thing.
Yeah. No, agreed. And actually, the question I have kind of ties into this same exact thing. So after Luke, you answer, I'll kind of get into it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it helps the story if that's really what the question is. You know, like how effective is that book in a book towards this story? That's what we're getting at.
Or like, given what we've heard from the actual story, you know how he sometimes will give us like.
Oh, I definitely want to read the
excerpts.
Runner series.
Yeah.
I definitely want to read it personally. It's actually one of those like I've been trying to work in some classics lately, and it's classics from the 1600s, 1700s, the 1950s, just stuff that isn't contemporary within the last 40 years to some extent. And I mean that's not counting Tolkien because that's eternal. Just that's a whole thing. But
just like Hope.
Right, but I think it was effective in creating something that I would have been interested in, just learning about more. I not think I would have been avidly obsessive about, but I think I get where they're coming from. Of if that speaks to you and that speaks to the kind of person you are at that time in your life. I mean, yeah, I can understand that. I think it shows in basically exactly what Benji's last point there was of, the foil between Morris and Pete. They both had, and this comes up at the very end too. Like Pete's like, man, the thing that scares me most is I was just like him. Like I feel the same way that he
Right.
did, but then Bill has to this is the one thing Bill actually does. he, he basically says, "You're good. Like, no, you did do the right thing, even if it was a mistake. Like in your mind, I think you would have done it. An accident, I should say. Even if it was an accident, you still burned the books when." He, like Benji pointed out earlier, gollumed into it, just holding on for precious pages of notebooks in the fire that Pete started. I don't know. I think it did a good job of selling the idea of what stories can mean to some people, I guess. And I would be interested in reading The Runner. And so I made it part of our YouTube thumbnail there.
Awesome.
Someone made at least a cover for it. So I put that. I couldn't think of what else to put as the overall picture. I was like,
That's hilarious.
there's not like an easiest Mercedes car that I can put as the.
Yeah. So my tie-in question to this, knowing Pete and knowing his personality and everything, he read book 4 first before ever reading The Runner. The Runner Goes
He read The
West,
Runner in school beforehand.
No,
he was
he did
reading,
not. He had heard about it. He had heard about it.
It was assigned to him. He had already read it. He had read it before. He had read it a couple years before.
I thought it was
he was assigned to him in school.
I have no information on this subject.
Okay, if that's the case, then
I'm pretty sure.
My question does:
I'm pretty
would
sure.
he have enjoyed it or been as? I guess without reading the 4th book, would he have been enthralled with the series since he had the end? He had the material, knowing his kind of kind-hearted demeanor and everything. Would he have been enthralled with it?
I don't think he would have been quite as obsessed not because he didn't read the end of the series, but because he was invested in Rothstein as an author because he had this treasure trove.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I will agree with that. He became more invested and obsessed because he had something that was majorly important, and he realized that because he had a minor bit of experience to even know it was a thing, right? I mean, if you came across 2 books worth, 150 notebooks worth of an author you've never had any relation to or experience with, it'd be like, okay, well, there's bonfire material. Sorry, like it's. I don't know.
I found this.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think he became more invested because he had the notebooks to some extent. I don't know how much the first book affected him because I think he read it ahead of time, and
I don't think so because he was only 13, and that's a high school book. And so I don't think it would have been assigned until like his freshman sophomore year, but he was only 13 when he found the
that's 8th grade. So it's not.
No, it's not far off, but I have a feeling he read.
There was some timey-wimey jumping back and forth right around that spot to where maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought he had read it the first book before finding them. But I could.
I don't think it would have mattered.
Okay.
I think you find the books, and even if at first you're like, "Oh, what is this?" and you kind of start paging through them, which is what I think he did, and then you get assigned this. Like, oh wait, hold on, that's this. Because I don't think he necessarily knew it was Rothstein when he found the notebooks. I think that
not named.
Yeah, they're not labeled. So, all right, I'm going to come up with my next boring question. Personal inquiry. Ben, were Pete and Tina acceptably age appropriate? Which you've already answered.
They were. Morris wasn't. No, kidding. Just.
I don't care about him. Obviously, I think I have made that plain. Okay. Here's my first actual question that we might actually have something to talk about. What should have happened to the Rothstein notebooks? At any point in the story, I mean, I guess maybe he still has to die. I don't really know. But what happens to those?
So once they're in the trunk and Pete finds them, or just at any point?
Pick a point let's do a what if and have some sort of multiverse divergence. And
I'll say if it happens basically up until that 2009 point where Pete finds him, right?
mhm.
I like his idea of setting him to either like the New Yorker or the university, and he can make it
Yeah.
public too. And I mean, it's one of those, if you're innocent, do the thing. Like just do the easy thing. It's easier. Like people are always like, "Oh, but I know it's stolen and all this." No one's going to think that you stole this in
A
1978.
13-year-old kid.
Right. Like,
Yeah,
you
but
were
he
born in the
doesn't realize
90s,
about the
bro.
money. He doesn't care about the notebooks.
He
It's the
doesn't have to
money
say
that
they-
gets
that the money was there. The robbers, the story
agreed.
still holds. The robbers took the money, left the notebooks because they didn't give a shit.
Agreed.
Like
But
that
13,
would be easy,
it's
and he could just be like,
I-
"There was no money. There was no money at all."
Well, what, I would have
the
even brought up
university
the
thing-
money. Yeah.
I think yes, that is what should have had happened. That's a perfectly grammatically correct sentence. However, should have had happened. That is correct.
It is.
But it's another callback
there's too
to
many
Lisi's
haves.
story. Nope, he should have had happened.
I'm
It
not
should
saying
have
you're
happened.
wrong. I'm saying it hurts. Go on.
Fair. But it's a callback again to Lisi's story, where the university professor was obsessed with her husband's work, wanting to get it and, all that kind of thing. I just thought about that moment when you brought up the university. It kind of clicked for me on there. But yeah, so I think that's the ideal. Send it to New York University or wherever. And after you make photocopies for yourself, just, hey,
Yeah.
I mean, because who knows if they're going to publish every single thing,
Right.
because you
yeah.
might get a publisher who's like, we can cut this out, we can cut, and then you have
the
your own
edited version. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh,
Like,
Christopher Tolkien.
No, I agree though. Like I think every time he's talking about giving it to a private seller, I'm like, that's the last thing that you should want to do because
yeah,
you may never see that again. And they talk about that multiple times too, of these private collectors who have Rembrandts and Picassos and all these things, and they just hoard them because they like to have that ownership. But, and this is the other thing that comes up multiple times. I know it's not quite the exact question, but like collectorship versus sharing art with the world, right? Like how much better would the world be with books 4 and 5 out there? Probably better off rather than
Mhm.
some stiff old guy who's just got $1 billion that can just go buy all of this collection at one fell swoop and it never sees the light of day. That's just as good as if Rothstein would have died with them and Morris didn't come and steal them. It's the exact
Yeah,
same
because-
outcome, which is not productive in the least.
because in his will, I believe it did say to burn them all,
Destroy them. Yep.
destroy
They-
them.
they were to be
Nobody gets them,
destroyed.
and yeah, and it's kind of one like another. How many references can we get in this episode? The movie Yesterday. I don't know if either of you have seen it.
No, but I
It's-
did eat it yesterday. It's like on last Monday.
Nice. Was Jenny working?
No, Jamie was.
And Jamie. So anyway, but yesterday, basically, guy gets knocked out during a thunderstorm, wakes up. He's the only one that remembers the Beatles, and he's a musician. So he starts playing the Beatles songs as his own and everything. And there's a handful of people that are like, excuse me, like they're giving him looks and they know, and they finally confront him towards the end of the movie, and they're like, no, we're not mad at you. This music needs shared. It needs to be, given to everybody, and you're the only one that can do it. I can't play music. And she's like, I don't remember the words. So this music needs to be out there. And that's the mentality. You can keep it for yourself. If you're the only one in the world that knows this information, that's great. That's absolutely meaningless compared to giving of yourself and giving that gift.
Good stuff.
This is the big one. So, what the fuck is up with Brady Hartsfield?
I'm glad this question's here. Benji, I'm going to let you definitely take that going on for like the
I'm
biggest thing we
ac-
avidly not talked about.
I know.
I'm glad
I was
because, like,
I was waiting for it to my favorite thing because like I had that. And so spoilers. But I'm kind of pissed a little bit.
I know
Just a little
why.
bit.
I think I know why, but go ahead.
me
Why do
too,
you-
because
why
I
do you-
think it's a thing it annoyed me.
I think it's
No.
because this book series has been so clean on supernatural things going on
Mm-hmm.
Take it away.
Damn it! I hate that we're all
Yeah.
agreeing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's-
I'm not saying I agree. I knew that
Oh,
Benji would be pissed.
I agree.
yeah, and I'm not pissed. I mean, I said pissed, but I'm not pissed. But it's like, come on, okay. No spoilers. I read the new Stephen King. No magic shit. Very fucking good. And I like the magic shit when the magic shit's supposed to be there. This one, it's set in real world. We heard stories of Stephen King's writing in the previous book. We referenced that. You know, we talked about that. They talked about Cujo and or Carrie and all that shit. So it's like you're referencing stuff, and now you're bringing in the mystical. You know, all this. I don't mind because I do kind of want to see where it goes. I do want to see where it goes, but at the same time, it's like, damn it, I was just a little hopeful. Like, if it was just internal, like he magically got okay and got like super smart, okay. But kinetic powers, we're going back to Carrie. Come on.
Haven't
Come
seen
on.
Kinetic in a long time. Haven't seen Kinetic in a while.
True.
Yeah, since the very first book. Well, that doesn't
Yeah.
count. We haven't read that. That's not canon on our podcast. So Melissa's holding up the Institute, which is not
Yeah,
canon on
but-
this podcast because she's the only one that knows it, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, but I have read the prequel to it, and yeah, yeah,
Still
that one,
another
which-
one, Firestarter, not canon.
You were given homework that you're supposed to read it before
and
December.
I still haven't finished it because it's
not
not
great.
good.
I know. We have
It's
to
that
read
good.
it.
I still haven't finished it. Anyway,
I don't
but
know.
yeah,
I'm kind of
so-
excited for the magic being held off, but now being slightly layered in. I think it's been done well to where it's not hitting you over the head, being there all the time, but it's not non-existent. That's how I feel about it.
And
And
I will say, like, I can't talk. We're at like 10
Too
o'clock,
much,
and
too
I'm
much tea, man. That tea is just getting you.
whatever. I missed it the first time through.
Okay.
Like I missed the magic until the last page, and I was like, wait, the thing fell over, and the he's doing like, what just happened? The next time through the book, and it was, oh, there's this story about the water turning off, and oh, the book pusher guy who's getting wonky, and the girl who committed suicide. I'm like, oh, okay. It was hinted at early on, but I didn't get it at all the first time. It was really well done. That it was very subtle. It wasn't until my second time through that I was like, okay, I see what's going on with him now. I don't quite know why. And I really dislike the fact that Bill visited him at all. That was very uncomfortable for me. But okay. So like I'm ready to be done talking to you guys because I just want to go start
Yeah,
reading.
I'm
book
getting mine
now.
tonight.
I love you,
Yeah.
but I've
Just
been
waiting to
waiting.
hit download.
I know.
Just wait.
Same.
Actually,
I
So,
have not
all right,
been
so-
this excited for a new book. And
I
It
know.
feels good. It feels good. We'll
So,
come right
all
back
right.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
sure.
So can we jump to the last section there? Because that kind of
yeah,
ties right
I mean,
into.
Luke, did you get a chance to answer the question about
Yeah.
Brady?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Cool.
I like it. I'm good.
Yep, go Benj. What's your favorite thing?
Favorite thing is the Bill and Brady stuff. I love that Bill goes to the hospital just to taunt that psycho fucking piece of shit because that's all Bill has. He ruined his retirement. He ruined his end goal. He found, who he thought could be the new love of his life. She got blown the fuck up. He, basically made him almost kill himself, taunted him and everything. And so now Bill gets to have that one little bit of just going in. Yeah, how's your mother? Oh yeah, she did that. Yeah, and just to be that dick that you knew Bill was when he was 35 years old as a detective. That Bill, like that thing from Bill's perspective, talking about the old days, he was always the good cop. He was always the nice guy, and the one. Oh no, there's a reason he's got a happy slapper. Not every, I mean, just saying. There's there's some darkness there, which we've seen, and I appreciate because he's a real character. He's a real human being, and I absolutely loved it. And then the very end, and I picked up a little bit of the notes of the suicide thing, the water turning on. And I'm like, what's going? I'm like, is he really going to do this? He really? Is it just coincidence thing? Or the nurses just being like this? King's, red herring kind of thing. I was reading that the first time through, and then all of a sudden Brady looks over and the picture falls. I'm like, motherfucker. God damn it. Okay, fine, fair. Let's see where it goes. I'm excited for it. I want to see it, but at the same time, I'm like, I was hoping it'd stay clean. But yeah, so my favorite part of the whole thing was the Brady and Bill. I love this book. It actually was a good book, but definitely a bridge to get to the next one.
Luke, favorite thing?
I really liked the foil between Pete and Morris, just seeing how they both took the same thing and just are inherently different people about it, One's, like I said, hollows are horcruxes is a bit how I felt about it. And if you get that reference, I mean, hopefully you do, but I'm not going to go into the depths of it. But, they both feel the same passion for the same thing. And when they get a chance to talk, like if Morris could just get the fuck over himself, like, and not just be a villain for like 2 minutes, it could have been beautiful. Like, it could have worked out really, really well. Like, that would have been like, oh shit, like, I could just be buddy with this guy instead of being jealous and selfish and all of these things where I just inherently, he read my story. Those were for my eyes only. What are you talking about? They were specifically for nobody's eyes, apparently, if you ask the author himself. But, like, no, again, at the end of it, Pete, tells us that he's the only one that has the information. And he's going to do his best to share those things in a long article, and maybe future stuff too, with the world. He's going to share the information, where I don't think Morris would have done that. He just would have held it until he died, and that would have been it. He never would have sold it at that point, I don't think. But I don't know. It was just cool to see how they had so many similarities in stark contrast to each other. I thought it was really well done. Melissa,
My favorite thing. My favorite thing is that Bill didn't show up until page 191, and I didn't even miss him. And I don't mean that in I don't like Bill Hodges, so thank God he wasn't in his own book for a third of it. It was more, I was so invested in the story. I was invested in the Sabers family. I was invested in the crap Maury was going through. I didn't want Rothstein to die, right? Like, I was in it. And then on page 191, it was like, oh, shit, Bill's in this book.
Nice.
Damn, I forgot about that.
Nice.
Right.
That's how I felt.
And then and Holly was there. The whole gang was all back together. It's like, all right. And I like a good detective novel. I feel like that's, to me, those are the light, fluffy reads that I can read like 17 of in a row and feel like I haven't wasted my time, but I'm not emotionally investing in.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the concept that this was a detective's novel so in the first book, in Mr. Mercedes, we got the detective story alongside the bad guy. We got those stories concurrently. And we talked about how much we really enjoyed not just getting just the detective side where we're getting the clues and have to figure it out at the end, but we know what's going on as we go. So we're watching him figure out things we already knew. This time, we got all of that first.
Yeah.
We knew the whole mystery, and then we brought in the detective, and it was like, oh, that's an interesting way to do it. Let's do the whole story, then give us the piecing it together. So again, Stephen King always does things a little different, right? He's got a twist. And even though it's still a detective novel in the same series of his detective novels, he twisted on himself even with it. I really like that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. Everybody take a breath.
I'm already done.
Here we go. I'm going to try sharing my screen.
Ooh.
Luke,
Ooh.
how do you feel about this?
Let's give it a shot. Okay.
How did it go?
We're good. I think we're good.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here is our list of all of the things we have ever said. We know it's all wrong. That's fine.
On average, it's decent though.
I mean, it's an interesting.
There's a few that.
I mean, I'm at the point now that I'm like, I just love that it's like this random monthly like revisiting of how we're feeling at the time, right? Like I'm over it. It's great. I'm going to be really screwed in December when I run out of space on this PowerPoint. So I'm going to have to fit, but it'll be fine. Okay. So each of you need in our little workbook to put in the number of where you think it fits. Is it better than number 1, Dolores Claiborne? Is it worse than 21, Carrie? Is it somewhere in the middle? Type it in. Don't hit enter. Luke, you seem like you already have yours in, which is shocking for you. Mine is already in.
Mine's in.
Okay. Everybody ready? Benji, I don't
Yep.
see your little cursor.
I'm there.
You're in the final
Ah,
thoughts.
I'm there.
You're in the
You're in
final
the
Oh, I'm in the
box.
final thoughts.
We see
Yeah.
your gray box. You
That's fine.
wrong boxer.
You will not be part of the average if you do not put it in the right
You are
spot.
a hanging
There we
Chad right
go.
there. You're a
Here we go.
hanging
Ready?
Chad.
There we go.
All right, we're going to hit enter in 3, 2, 1, go. Ooh, okay.
Ooh, that's
So I
interesting.
said,
Okay.
I know, I said 14. I put it above Lisi's story and below Revival. Luke said 7, putting it over Misery and under Mr. Mercedes. And Benji said 13, putting it under it and above Revival, giving it an average of 11. So it takes over 11 from Do McKee, just under Gerald's game. Thoughts, emotions about this?
No, that's actually well, I didn't want it above it. Like, to me, this is a Chamber of Secrets. This is Clash of Kings. This is number 2. This is a bridge story, as I mentioned. I haven't read the third one, but if I could skip this one, I probably would. Like, to read the full series, like I'd read 1 and 3 without even reading 3. Just saying. And I could skip this one and probably not miss a beat, and I'm fine. So I don't absolutely love it, but I don't hate it. It is a good read, but is it better than it? No. Is it better than Revival? Yeah, probably. I actually did enjoy it probably more than Revival. So that's kind of where my mentality was. I would just put it right above Revival. Is it better than Lisi's story? Hell yes.
I really dislike the fact that almost everything Benji has said has been what I was feeling in my heart of hearts today. So, spit take on your part. I agree. I was not as invested as I was in it. I enjoyed it a lot, but it was, like I said, a detective story. Like, it's kind of fluffy and I like it, but I wasn't as invested as it. And I really liked Revival. I have some strong emotional connections to that one. So I liked that one a little better. Is it as good? Is it not as good as some of the other ones higher up on the list? No, it's probably better than Evil Things. It's probably better than Joyland, but at this point, yeah, I didn't like that one very much. But and we all know how I feel about Pet Sematary. I'm just happy it's not number 1 anymore. So, all right, Luke.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, I liked it just the same as Mr. Mercedes. I guess that's really where I was putting it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I looked at. I
Yeah.
had to ignore the it thing. I had to, because you just have to pick which ones you're kind of comparing it relatively to. And we're always going to be wrong with the way this is. This is a terrible system that I created.
Now.
I know it's on me, but we're living with it. We're going to figure it out. And it's just every time you have to look at it and say, what part of the list, it's almost like on Price is Right. You're like, okay, now stop. Okay, compare it between these 4 books. And that's kind of what I did. And I like that I put it between Mr. Mercedes and Misery, which I feel like there's so much going on that obviously connects those 2 stories with this one, that it felt like a good spot for me to put it. I not that I like it better than Misery at all. I think it does some things that better than Misery. It's just very different, but there are some similarities. I don't know. It's a neat book. It's fun, and I think I'm very excited about the 3rd book coming up that we're doing here very shortly. So, for me, that's what I thought of, and I knew I would disagree with myself if I spent longer doing it, which is why I had an answer before you guys were done with your favorite things. So I just saw it and that's what I'm going with, because I'll sit here looking at the menu all day long. It'd be like, oh, that looks good. That makes sense. Oh, that's 25, 95. That's a little too
You just
pricey.
need to go to Raising Cane's. They have one thing.
They have 2 things. They have chicken fingers and fries.
And dip.
And dip.
And really good Texas toast. Okay.
Pretty good tea, too.
Accurate. So, final thoughts. I'm going to tell you my final thought. I just want to read the next book. Moving on.
I also want to read the next book. And this was successful in a lot of things. I think this book did a good job for what it was trying to do.
Yes.
exactly.
It was better than Two Towers. It was a better mid bridge than Two Towers because I really hate the Frodo story. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Go on, Bench.
Good book. I did enjoy it. I will read it again when I do the Succession. I will not skip it. But it's good. I recommend the read. So
All right.
all right. So with that said, make sure you're following us on the socials at Floats Down Here on Twitter and Instagram. And because shit don't mean shit, send us your emails at floatsdownhere@gmail.com. Thank you guys for not stealing that at all this episode. I've been waiting. All right. Make sure you're checking all of our shows out on the podcastthat.com. Subscribe, rate on iTunes and on YouTube under Drawbridge Media.
I'm not going to be anyone's birthday present, but this show and all of our shows at the podcastthat.com are produced with the love and support of our wonderful Imaginary Legion patrons. You can learn more about that and our awesome reward tiers at patreon.com/stayimaginary.
So next time we're not going to read a Stephen King book. We're going to read Anne Rice. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, we are reading the final of the Bill Hodges trilogy, End of Watch, which I'm going to pull from the back cover because I'm going to give it a benefit of the doubt because we haven't read it yet. Yeah. So I might. Okay. One sentence. Ready? Brady Hartsfield is about to embark on a new reign of terror against thousands of innocents.
You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.
The podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.